Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'll start with introductions. My name is Mark Tepper, and I am the president of the Coppell Recreation Development Corporation, so I'll be chairing the meeting. From my right to left, we have Amy Swaim, who is the chief of staff for the city of Coppell. We have Mayor Karen Hunt, Bijou Matthew, who is vice president of Crdc, Noel Bernal, who is the assistant city manager, the man who needs no introduction, Marvin Franklin, Councilman Marvin Franklin.
Can't get rid of him.
And Mubaba Khan, who is the secretary of the CRDC. We welcome everyone here tonight. I'd like to read to you the purpose of the public hearing. To receive public comment concerning the construction, acquisition, and equipment of a performing arts center, and the construction, acquisition, and equipment related to parking facilities, related roads, streets, and water and sewer facilities, and other related improvements that enhance any of the above items. We have asked you to, if you wanted to speak, we asked you to sign the register, and we will be called in the order that you've signed up. Public hearings are limited to 5 minutes per speaker, and a maximum of 1 hour for each of the proponents and the opponents of the item. I'm going to ask Noel to make sure that I have followed the letter of everything that needs to be stated to open the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Tepper. Yes, just to clarify, the purpose of the public hearing is a very targeted one. It's a focused one. It is a formality. The Coppell Recreation Development Corporation is subject to Texas Local Government Code Chapter 505. So under 505-159, any Type B corporation shall have at least one public hearing on a proposed project before spending money to undertake the project. So tonight, we aim to satisfy that requirement. So it is very targeted, it's a formality, and we are complying with the statute tonight.
Thank you, Noel. As I mentioned, we are going to call the speakers, a few ground rules. We're going to call the speakers in the order that you signed up. We ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes. We have a timekeeper, a timekeeping device and a timekeeper to the far right. We're not going to take any action tonight. We are here to listen to you. That is the whole purpose of our being here. And if you are here as a member of a group, we ask that you consider choosing a spokesperson just to keep it moving this evening. With that, our first citizen who signed up is Suba Verhart. I hope I didn't mess your name up too badly. And when you come up, if you would state your name and your address for the record, and then the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
It's not working. It is? Okay. Mark, thank you for inviting me. My name is Subbu Venkat. It's a cat. It's like a cat. It's Venkat. So thank you for inviting me. It's a beautiful day in Texas. I just came back from work, had some dinner, and I'm here. I want to appreciate all that's being done by Karen Hunt and the council. I want to appreciate Marvin and his work. I also want to appreciate what's being done with the CRDC. It's wonderful work. You know, it's a great place to live. Nobody can deny that. Coppell is a great place to live. And the motivation behind using sales tax dollars to build, whether it's a life park or a library or a museum or an art center, is commendable. It's a great idea. If I was in your chair and if that's the right thing to do, I would do that. And I wish I was in your chair. But today I'm going to talk about why I'm here. The reason I'm here is to talk about the upcoming arts center. So what is an art? if you ask what is an art, art is an item of beauty, to appreciate, to enjoy. You go to a museum or an art or theater to see a dance, recital, to spend quality time. So it is a prestige to have a theater in a city like Coppell. It's definitely a prestige. It's like driving a Mercedes. You know, if my first car was a Toyota, right? So I want to drive a Mercedes. That's a theater. But if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first need is food, clothing, and shelter. The next one is your physiological needs. I'm going to click on my phone here and look at those needs. The first one is psychological needs. The next one is safety needs. The next one is belongings. The fourth one is esteem needs. And the last one is self-actualization. So the question CRDC should ask themselves, and the council should ask, is have they fulfilled all the basic needs of Coppell? Have they done everything possible, and have they maintained those basic needs to move up to the prestige ladder? Have I earned enough to buy a Mercedes-Benz? Do I have enough money in the bank to get rid of the Toyota and buy the Mercedes-Benz? Have I enough money in the bank to join the country club? Have I done everything possible for the residents with the money that I have to move up to the theater? That's the question they should ask. And I hope, like Noel said, this is not just a formality, me spending 5 minutes of my time, and it doesn't become a formality. I hope that is not the case. So my ask is, if the council, if CRDC has decided, we have done everything in our power, we have done everything that needs to be done, all our facilities are spick and span, nothing is broken, everything that needs to be done, and the basic needs have been done, all the children are, what they need in the parks is done, all the senior citizens, what they need, it's been done, then we can build a the theater or the art center. I'll be the first one to be there to cut the ribbon, although I won't get the chance, because usually the mayor does to do it. So that's the argument I'm going to give you guys. Okay, money is there. Yes, it's sales tax dollars. Not every sales tax dollars is our money. People passing through Coppell, they might be buying a hamburger, putting 6 cents to. Yes, but we have to be judicious and smart in using that money, because it's just 40,000 people living in this small, beautiful city. It's not a lot of people. It's just 40,000. And they come here because of the value it provides, because of the schools, because of the beautiful neighbors, because of the friendly people, because of the library, because of the parks, because of those beautiful things. Are they going to miss anything if they don't have a theater? There is a theater 10 minutes from here, a beautiful theater in Louisville, MCD Theater. Medical City paid $500,000 for the name, and they still pay money for that. Theaters all over the country lose money. The first 5 years, they lose money. If anybody tells you otherwise, tell them it's a lie. New York Philharmonic, they are losing money. I was just listening to NPR. New York Theater, Museum, they are losing money. The biggest city in the world, they are losing money. So all I'm saying is I'm against it, and I want you all to use the money judiciously. And $16 million at $400 a head, 40,000 residents, it's a lot of money. So I want you all to consider that. And we have other facilities close by. Irving has got a theater. Louisville has got a theater. We can go there. Thank you all for your time.
And I thank you for your comments.
Thank you, sir. Was it 5 minutes? Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking it was 3 minutes. But
Our next speaker is Brad Henderson. Mr. Henderson, the floor is yours. And if you would state your name and
Yes, sir.
address for the record, please.
My name is Brad Henderson. I live at 463 Cambria. I'm a 22-year resident of Coppell. I have a wife and 2 kids, gone through CISD. This is going to be kind of put together back and forth, but rodent infested, leaky roof, mold. That's the theater that we have, right? And you want to build a $14, $16 million? We want you to be in charge of this? Why do we have this building, and what are we going to do with it after you vacate it? How much money is it going to cost? I think 2 weeks ago there was a meeting, 2 or 3, whatever it is. It went from $14 to $16 million. Do we have the plan from the builder? They're getting a lot of money from Coppell. It's mind-blowing. $16 million. Do we have that in our pocket today? Or is that going to be plus interest? How much is this building really going to cost? I looked at the numbers today. 2 employees, $120,000. Where's the benefits? Oh, that's another $30,000. So it's not $296,000 now, it's $330,000. What else have they missed? And then the next year, I can guarantee you it's going to be a lot more money. I looked at the usage assumption sheet. It was worse than I thought. Redo this proposal, bring it back, don't sign off on it now. I mean, this is a want, not a need. Please, do your due diligence. I would hate to wake up and read in a national press release your names and what's going on here in Coppell. Sorry to be vocal about it, but it's a lot of money. And it's just not a piece of candy in a candy store. We need to make sure we're spending money, our money, their money, correctly. That's all I got.
And I thank you for your comments. Tina Brown.
Hi, my name is Tina Brown, and I live at 228 Aspen Way. I'm just going to put a little bit of a human side, I think, on this issue a little bit, so sorry if I get a little emotional. I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity to share my support for the Performance Arts Center here in Coppell. As a citizen of Coppell, I know this center will offer a lot of services. I know it is very expensive. I think the supporters all know that, and we all appreciate that. But I know that this will be a place that will enhance the life here in Coppell, giving artists a place to gather, to grow in their art, to collaborate with other artists, offer entertainment and educational programs to current art lovers and future artists. A little background on myself, I started off playing the cello at 9 years old, became a cellist, and it became so much a part of my identity. It's still in my email address. While in college, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and all my dreams of being a professional cellist were dashed. But I was still able to play, and I was grateful for that. And my playing became something that I could do for fun. It became something I could do for community. It came a way for me to get to know those in my community where I lived. I played in church orchestras, I played weddings, I've played other gigs, and I was able to form friendships and see the best locations in a city, give back to the communities where I grew to love as I moved from place to place. 9 years ago, I moved to Dallas, to DFW, and started working in Coppell. I knew I would need friends, and I wanted community. And I started first by looking for those who had the same interest as I did, and my heart was broken that Coppell did not have an orchestra. So I started playing in the Flower Mound Symphony, and I've played there for 5 years. It's a great organization, but my heart, my home, and my time were all spent in Coppell. So when the opportunity came for me in the summer of 2017 to help begin to build a Coppell Community Orchestra, I jumped on board, quite literally becoming the board president of the organization. Being a part of this organization has shown me how hungry the community of Coppell is for an orchestra, arts, and especially musicians. In just 1 year, we have grown from 19 members in our first meeting to over 44 members. We have seen crowds of over 100, and at the last concert, 140 people at our concerts. And we've been asked to play in the community 8 times within the last 6 months. And so far, we've been able to provide every single opportunity with musicians to play. This community is hungry for arts. And it's within this first year of our organization, with very little budget and only word-of-mouth advertising, we've been able to do this and much more. We practice on Wednesday nights at the Current Art Center, which, yes, is not the best of shape. But at the same time, we do not fit in that facility with our 44 members. We use every single inch of that performance space, and we're not going to be able to grow much more. We've performed at the Cosby Library. We performed at the Community Center, Senior Center, and there's no spot that's big enough to hold us any longer. We're so grateful for these facilities, I must say. Their willingness to host us and allow us to max out their space. Our organization has great diversity, I want you to know. We range in ages from age 12 to 82. We have people from every culture, and over 80% of our orchestra live or work here in Coppell. It is a Coppell orchestra. As an organization, we will figure out the best uses for our resources, so we will continue to grow in whatever facilities we have. But know that we will use well a facility that is offered and available to us. We'll continue to grow our sponsorship from places like Mint, McKeeson, our local music schools, Coppell Music Academy, 3M Music Academy, the Coppell Conservatory. We have all of these as supporters of our organization, and we know that we will use the space well, and we will come alongside of the city to make sure this investment is used to really build up the community here in Coppell. Thank you for your time.
Jana Tidwell.
I'm Jana Tidwell. I live at 313 Parkview Place in Coppell. My family and I reside here for almost 9 years. We came here from Dallas. We lived close to Bishop Arts before it was cool to say you hung out at Bishop Arts. It was hard for us to move here, but we came here like many people do in Coppell. We came here for the schools. And we were sad to leave our historic home, and we felt like we were leaving something behind by missing out on that artistic community and that mom-and-pop entrepreneurship that has so successfully grown Bishop Arts into the economic hub that it is. When I moved here, I read an article in the Gazette that Coppell had an art center, and I was very excited. In fact, I jumped in my car and drove down to it, and I found a locked building that primarily served a black box theater. And I'm a visual artist, and there was not a place for me in that theater, and I was very disappointed about that. But I began to volunteer and serve in our community to try to find a way to bring visual arts to our community. I feel like that is very important. My husband and I have 2 children. I lovingly refer to one of them as the artist, and the other one is the accountant. And I think it's very important for them to be exposed to art. But I can tell you, with 2 parents working full-time jobs, volunteering on the PTO, on the board of the Biodiversity Center for our HOA, and serving on the Arts Council, there is limited time to get in a car and drive to Dallas or drive to Fort Worth and see an art exhibit or watch a musical performance or watch a great theatrical production in addition to what we have here in Coppell. I can tell you, if we offered these facilities in our own community, that we would be exposing our citizens and our residents to all types of art. And quite frankly, I think my child that's the accountant needs it more than the one that is the artist. Art is a platform for us to share our different cultures, our different opinions, and for us to start to understand each other. It is a way that we can build relationships and make friends and become invested in our community. It is also a way that we can open our minds and begin to see things from a different perspective. And for that, I think art is very valuable. And we should consider the addition of this building in our community. I think it will be a vibrant space that you see activated that will bring people to Old Town. I have heard on social media that the group that works out of the Arts Center is self-serving and out for their own ego. I personally am a metal artist, and I have been involved in facilitating 11 sculptures that have been brought to this town, and not one of them is mine. The only sculpture of mine that you will see in this town is the one that I gave to the Biodiversity Center. We are not a self-serving group. We are here to help our community. In fact, I would like all the people who have volunteered their time and shared art with our community for free to raise your hand. There are a group of people in this community that believe very strongly in this, and the people who even feel like we do not need an art center will find a benefit from the Arts Center. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your comments. Elaine Hammett, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Elaine Hammett. I live at 681 Thompson Drive. I want to thank you for holding this meeting tonight. I was thinking a lot over the last couple of days about what I wanted to discuss or how I wanted to discuss it, and actually got in my car and just did a drive-through Old Town. And it was kind of like I was telling somebody before, it was kind of like putting a glove on. It wasn't that I was looking for anything in particular. I just wanted to see what the fit was like and get the feel for it. And I have to tell you that if there had been 20 more people on the road plus myself, we would have been playing bumper cars. So my question to the committee is this: where are these people going to park for this art center? If I was a resident of these newly bought townhouses, I would be out of my mind right now. As a matter of fact, I was sitting in a restaurant the other day talking to a young woman who told me about how she and her husband had moved here from Dallas because they wanted to get away from the crowds, and they just loved the fact that Coppell is like a bedroom community. It's a beautiful, quiet, lovely place without a lot of fanfare. And they were really looking forward to living here. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I feel so guilty. I mean, I'm not going to say anything to this woman. I took the chicken's way out. But if you live down here and this art center goes into play, which, don't get me wrong, art centers, all about them, love it, love art, the whole thing. But I want to I wanted to impress upon you that there may be other alternatives that we can use. Okay, first of all, my biggest question, where's the parking? Where's that going to be? How are we going to get people in here? I mean, some people might argue and say the merchants would love to have these people here. Well, you know what? I'm going to take the opposite on that and say I don't think the merchants are going to like it at all, quite frankly, because if you can't get in here to park, you can't get in here to eat, and the merchants can't build out anymore, or it'll be a minimal amount that they can build out. So it's like weighing the pros and the cons. Is this worth however many millions of dollars to us to do this at this time? Or is it maybe worth our while to take the old facility and improve upon it? Get rid of, the rats. I mean, rats in Coppell are like, whatever. Do they pay taxes, Mayor? I wish they did. Anyway, the bottom line is let's put this thing on hold and slow down. There's no rush. We're all going to be whatever our next stage is anyway. So let's use our heads and do this wisely. And with our first speaker, I so agree with you, sir. I mean, we've got priorities. We've got tons of priorities. We've got the roads that have to be redone. We've got alleys that have got to be redone. We've got all sorts of everyday maintenance work that needs to be done, and it needs to be prioritized because we want to stay in good shape and keep our property values up and benefit from some of the benefits of all of these jobs that are coming into the area. And I love the idea of having a museum or an artistic center to go to and look at paintings and look at local talent. I think it's a fabulous idea. But, you know, the amount of money that is going to have to be earned by this center opening up to sustain it, I may just not be getting it. I was never great at math, but, you know, I just may not be getting it. So I just ask you to step back, everybody take a breath. Let's put it on the back burner. Let's talk about it. And, you know, and do this as a community together and make these decisions together. Sure, everybody's not going to be in agreement with each other. That's life. But, you know, see what the best possible thing is to do for our community, our property values, our homes. You know, we want to support our merchants. Let's see what we can get done. And I thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thanks. And thank you for your comments. Jean Shiflett, please.
Hello, my name is Jean Shiflett, and I live at 662 Cribbs Drive. And I want to thank you guys for bringing this up and allowing us to speak. And I also want to thank you for your enthusiasm, your $14 million worth of enthusiasm. I agree with a lot of the people who've already spoken tonight, especially with the last speaker. I think it's great. I had season tickets to Coppell Theater. I support the theater. I just don't know that this massive theater is what this town needs. I like the small feel of Coppell. I'd like to keep it like that. One thing that I think would be very helpful is on our city website, if we could have more information that's readily available. I mean, I started trying to dig for information on this to do my study in advance, and it was not easy. I mean, it was pretty much impossible. So just some transparency there, I think, would be hugely beneficial. And in addition to that, maybe like a model, if it's already been designed. I saw the picture of it on the website. You know, why don't we have a model of it out here at Town Center or maybe at the core? I think that would bring some more awareness to it. In addition, I am concerned about the parking, and it's also my understanding that there's not going to be a lot of storage. The current theater, one of the issues that they have is that after every production, they have to either store a very limited number of props or they have to toss them because they simply don't have room. If you're spending $14 million on a facility, you should have massive storage. That should not be an issue. So I question, why is that still an issue? You know, like, what could we do differently with the theater to provide them with that? And that's just logic speaking. Why would you spend $14 million and not have enough storage? I don't get it, okay? The other thing is, and again, the math on this and the profitability or the loss has not been real apparent. Maybe somebody else will have that information, but it's my understanding that we would really have to pull in people or productions to actually make some money, and we would have to have that happening pretty much every day of the year in order to break even, or we would be having a loss of $150,000 to $270,000 a year. So I'd like out on the city website if we could see the math, what would have to take place in order for us to break even. And I think the first gentleman said, for every new business or whatever, you lose money the first 5 years. But what's that plan? As a businesswoman, I would never put money towards something and not know the plan. So I'd like to see that as a citizen. And then lastly, it's my understanding that corporate or private sponsorship is a necessity to have this. And we have a lot of Fortune 500 companies in Coppell. Have we gotten any sponsorship? I know that the Louisville Theater, they just got the hospital up there to give some money towards that. They're calling it the Medical Center of Louisville Grand Theater, and they're paying $405,000 over a 5-year period for the title sponsorship. So my question is, do we have any corporate, with these Fortune 500 companies here, do we have anything coming in on that? But again, I thank you for listening to us. I really thank you. I truly do. And I hope that you listen to us and you take our concerns. I truly support, and I know there's a lot of people here from the theater, I truly support the theater, and want you guys to have a new theater. I just don't think it needs to be as massive as what we have. And I want you guys to have everything that you want in the theater. Thank you.
And thank you for your comments. Pete Wilson, please.
Hello, I'm Pete Wilson, 214 Samuel Boulevard here in Coppell. I know that this hearing is not to determine whether Coppell finally approves the new Arts Center, but particularly in response to the negative comments already made, I feel I need to make a counter statement. Some of you already know me, and you know that I make no excuses for the fact that I support and promote all the arts in Coppell. I've lived here 71 years. I taught in the school district in the arts 36, and I've been with the Theater Coppell for over 30. I spend most of my time in the theater, but I've also found time to belong to the Coppell Arts Council, which seeks to support all forms of art, theater, music, and fine arts. A friend said to me recently, "Isn't it a shame that it's taken 20 years for Coppell to help the arts?" I don't think Coppell has neglected the arts. For 18 years, we've at least had a building for performances, even though sometimes we've had visitors like squirrels and rats and elusive rain leaks that have plagued us for almost 2 decades. So I don't believe Coppell has neglected the arts. It's just now is the proper time to move forward. The arts are always the last to receive proper attention. That's because they are an intellectual luxury. They can't pay for themselves any more than tennis courts or parks can. And they are the crowning touch to a well-rounded, upscale community. Our proposed new arts center would give a proper home to local arts groups and have proven themselves for over 3 decades. And now there will be a place for new emerging organizations like the Community Orchestra, the Community Children's Choir, and Coppell Creatives. Additional advantages will be a place for piano recitals, dance performances, and even spaces for weddings, meetings, and receptions. It will also complete the Old Town development as a community gathering spot. This building will be built at no cost to property owners. It will come from your fund that is designed for just such projects and no others. No current amenity like walking trails will be compromised. Lucky us, there's enough to go around for everybody. We have parks, an aquatic center, tennis courts, soccer fields, a library, safety park, nature preserve, senior citizen, an outstanding farmer's market, and even a dog park. A new art center is not late. It's just time to have one. Thank you, CRDC, for considering this funding. And I'll see you at the next arts organization meeting. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Dave Greenberg.
Dave Greenberg, 408 Pecan Hollow Drive. Hello, everyone. So I was going to talk a little bit about unintended consequences. So I'm a physician scientist at UT Southwestern. My family moved here to Coppell in 2010. We love it here. I'm originally from Houston. The neighborhood that I grew up in was right down the street from a community center that had a large theater. It really played a very important part in my life. In fact, it really was the focal point for the entire neighborhood. Multiple families transected through this community center that had a very large theater, among other things, including a gym and a pool, ran summer camps. This is where we ran into families, friends, people that were meeting for the first time. And I grew up in the summers in the theater, and I remember it very fondly. I ultimately went to the Performing Arts High School in Houston, Texas, and I was a theater major there. And while it's true that There are a couple people who graduated from that high school who are excellent tattoo artists. A few other things happened to some people in that high school, including myself, and I went on to medical school. In fact, there's another member of my class at the time who was a pulmonary critical care physician here in Dallas. I didn't really think about it at the time, but my time spent in the arts and my time spent at a performing arts high school actually did more for me in preparing for medical school than college ever did. It took a while for me to figure that out. We learned how to listen, we learned how to talk to people, and this was part of that particular art that I was engaged in. So that was an unintended consequence, but it really had very meaningful effects upon my life. So there are a lot of wonderful things, and you're going to hear and have already heard about a lot of the benefits of art in our community. But it goes beyond just any individual and their interest in art. It translates into many downstream things in individuals' lives and the community at large that we can't even anticipate. That's certainly what happened to me. I know there's lots of concerns about costs of things. I would point out to those who are worried about costs, there's a lot that we've done in this city at great cost. We just heard an entire list of many of the projects that we've been engaged in this community. I would argue they've all enhanced our community quite dramatically. I would also say that 50% of them I personally probably don't use at all, and that's okay. All the amenities that we have in this community are here for the community, and we use them to variable amounts for each family and individual, whether it's the Biodiversity Center, the money that was spent on the library, which I think is fabulous, but people may not even go to the library. I don't think that really matters much, because at the end of the day, all of these things come together to really make this a wonderful place to live. And we can't anticipate all the wonderful consequences that will come from having such a nice art center. And just to conclude, I would say I hope 2 years from now, I'll be able to look at my family and friends in this town and say, why don't we go for a dinner and a show? And I don't have to drive to the AT&T Center. Thank you very much.
And thank you for your comments. Scott Spray is next.
Scott Spray, 622 Cribbs Drive. Thank you very much for the meeting tonight and listening to our comments. When we signed in, we had to check that we were either for or opposed to the project. I really wish there was an option for, but not as proposed. And what I mean by that, my wife and I are big supporters of the arts. We've been season ticket holders at Coppell Theater for 7 or 8 years. We even donate additional funds because we believe in it. She was an art major in college with a graphic design emphasis. Unfortunately, she can't be here due to work commitments tonight. But I feel we do need an improved art center, performing arts center. But when the initial conversations were had, I was hearing numbers of 4 to 5 million, and now we're in the 14 to 16 million range. And for frame of reference, I happen to be a member of First United Methodist Church in Coppell. We built a modern worship center a few years ago for a cost of just over $3 million. And for those of you that have been in it, it's 350 seats, it's got audio and visual, it's got classrooms, it's got a kitchen, lobby areas, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not suggesting we clone that building, but I think it gives us an idea what can be built for significantly less than 14 to 16 million. So my concern is really the scope of it, and I believe we already have $1 million invested in architectural drawings and engineers, which to me is a lot. And looking at some of those drawings, I saw escalators, and that's just one example where we're not being prudent, because if you've ever operated a business or building that has an escalator, a lot of maintenance goes in those things, tens of thousands of dollars. A stairwell requires next to no maintenance. So just things like that, I think we need to really look at this project and say, are we being good stewards of taxpayer money? And I understand it's not property tax, but it's still taxpayer money. And so that gets to another point. If we really feel we can afford it, why are we having to borrow for all these projects rather than wait for the funding to come in? And also, it's a question of prioritization, because if we spent 4 to 5 million, and we do feel we have 14 to 16 million we can comfortably spend, I'd like to see that directed to hiking and biking trails. That's something that consistently is rated by citizens of Coppell of if not the top, one of the very top choices for park and recreation dollars. And that seems to keep getting bumped down in the priority list by this project, Life Safety Center, and several others. And I'm also just worried, even that 14, 16 million, I have a feeling it's not realistic, and probably more importantly, the operating costs are probably not realistic, because I know when we opened the Life Center, we said we'd have one full-time staff person. I believe there's two. I think they're planning 2 staff persons for this. I suspect that will grow to more than 2. Another thing is just the current facilities we have. If you go across the street to the core, you'll find torn pads on some of those weight machines. So we aren't maintaining to the degree we should current facilities under the scope of Park and Recs. So I think it's a matter of cost, it's a matter of prioritization, and it's a matter of building another thing that we may or may not properly fund and operate correctly. Thank you very much for your time.
And thank you for your comments. Tanya Greenberg is next.
Good evening. My name is Taria Greenberg. I live at 408 Pecan Hollow Drive. I'm a citizen of Coppell. I love the arts. I have acted at Theater Coppell. I've sung with the Coppell Community Chorale, and right now I'm a fine artist. I do textiles and printmaking. But that's my passion. I was originally going to address you tonight from the perspective of my public health professional expertise and share with you the positive public health impacts of public art facilities, how local access to the arts reduces morbidity and mortality of citizens, improves health outcomes, increases social support, and decreases the risk factors associated with isolation, heart disease, and depression. Instead, after hearing the topics other people have raised, I'm going to read to you 2 excerpts I found to remind you about how access to the arts raise up our community. First, I would like to read to you an excerpt from a paper by the Americans for the Arts called Why Public Art Matters. Cities gain value through public art, cultural, social, and economic value. Public art is a distinguishing part of our American public history and our evolving culture. It reflects and reveals our society, adds meaning to our cities, and uniqueness to our communities. Public art humanizes the built environment and invigorates public spaces. It provides an intersection between past, present, and future, between disciplines, and between ideas. American cities and towns aspire to be places where people want to live and want to visit. Having a particular community identity, especially in terms of what our towns look like, is becoming even more important in a world where every place tends to look like every place else. Places with strong public art expressions break the trend of blandness and sameness and give communities a stronger sense of place and identity. When we think about memorable places, we think about their icons. Consider the St. Louis Arch, the totem poles of Vancouver, the heads at Easter Island. All of these were the work of creative people who captured the spirit and atmosphere of their cultural milieu. Absent public art, we would be absent our human identities. Public art is a reflection of its place and time. It acts as a place marker in all human settlements. Public art activates the imagination and encourages people to pay attention and perceive more deeply the environment they occupy. Public art stimulates learning and thought about art and society, about our interconnected lives, and about the social sphere as a whole. Public art is uniquely accessible and enables people to experience art in the course of daily life, outside of museums or other cultural institutions. Public art provides everyone in the community direct and ongoing encounters with art. It engages social interaction, both during the selection process and following installation, and an artwork can lead the viewer towards self-reflection and awareness. It has been witnessed throughout history. Public art can be an essential element when a municipality wishes to progress economically and to be viable to its current and prospective citizens. Data strongly indicates that cities with an active and dynamic cultural scene are more attractive to individuals and business. Public art can be a key factor in establishing a unique and culturally active place. Public art can create civic icons, but can also transform neighborhoods into more vibrant expressions of human imagination. By building and reinforcing community culture, a space for public art can act as a catalyst for community generation or regeneration. In this case, size does not necessarily matter. Public art can be very visible, large, permanent structures that are unmistakable as an art experience, but it can also be subtle, short-lived, or seamlessly integrated into one's experience of a place. Public art matters. My second quote is from former Texas Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. She says, "The arts are not a frill. The arts are a response to our individuality and our nature and help shape our identity. What is there that can transcend deep difference and stubborn divisions? The arts. They have a wonderful universality. Art has the potential to unify. It can speak in many languages and without a translator. The arts do not discriminate. The arts can lift us up." And so it seems to me that this conversation here tonight, the very divisiveness and anger over differences of opinions, proves that, even more than ever, our community needs the very benefits that exposure to the arts provides. And an art center can be a place of reunification, of communication, of celebration of ideas and visions, and expression of thought and humanity, and will hopefully reunite us through the art it provides our citizens. Thank you.
And thank you for your comments. Bethany Hens.
Hi, I'm Bethany Hensey. I live at 721 South Coppell, heart of Old Town, and my neighbors and I are very excited about the prospect of this new art center, rest assured. I am president of the Coppell Community Chorale, have been president the past couple of years, have been involved in that organization for the past 10. And so many comments here tonight. I just really appreciate you all listening to us speak about our passions so passionately. I'm just going to read something brief, hopefully. I just want to reiterate, I strongly support the proposed Coppell Art Center. I agree with comments that have been made about how it will provide a quality venue that will enhance the mental and emotional well-being of anyone who would choose to take advantage of it. But I would also like to just make a point, stress the financial advantages that I see in it for the community as a whole. There are three main financial benefits when we talk about this that I think citizens need to be aware of. And I know that council's been considering this in this. I feel it's been a lengthy project. I think we're entering our second or third year into working on this project, and I feel like it's time, and it's been a long time coming. Number one, the Art Center would continue Coppell's successful history of providing facilities that differentiate us from surrounding communities, which increase the quality of life and desirability of living and working in Coppell. These factors result in increased property values, which is a direct financial benefit to homeowners in Coppell. Also, this quality venue will drive economic growth in Old Town Coppell by drawing arts enthusiasts from inside and outside Coppell, who will not only buy tickets to events, but who will also spend their money at local establishments. This drives tax revenues for the city to help fund this facility. And number three, funding for the Arts Center will be a minimal financial burden on the citizens of Coppell. The CRDC sales tax funding source is primarily generated by the large corporate businesses on the west side of town. And my understanding is that hotel and hospitality taxes will also be a source of funding. Property taxes will play a minimal part, and so the financial burden on the citizens of Coppell is small. Overall, I believe this Art Center is a project that has both quality of life and ultimately financial benefits that are positive for the community as a whole. And I thank you for listening to me.
And thank you for your comments. Kent Darwin, I hope I said your name right.
Thank you. My name is Kent Darwin. I live at 327 Spanish Moss Drive here in Coppell. I will tell you a little bit about my background so that you'll understand why I'm supporting the desire for a new arts center for our city. Kay, my wife, and I moved to Coppell in 1986. I started singing with the Coppell Chorale in 1988. We were season ticket holders to Theater Coppell. I was a member of the 2030 Planning Committee, and I am a member of the Coppell Arts Council. After 31 years, I retired in 2001 from 3M Company, so I could devote more of my time and effort into the passion that I have of drawing and painting parts of this good earth that we live on. I'm fortunate that I have art that is hanging in homes and offices across the United States and in some foreign countries. Now I'll tell you why I believe in the focus of the new Coppell Arts Center. My comments will be based on two questions that were asked during a survey that I was asked to take regarding building a new art center. And the first question was, how do you think the Arts Center meet the needs of the current and future artists of the community? A used fire station that serves as Coppell Theater for Theater Coppell plays and our community chorale for many, many years now was not built with acoustics in mind. And you can tell it. If we have a play and our concerts, sound quality is essential and necessary to do justice to the performers, to do justice to the audience, and give us reasons to come back and do it time and time again. A new Coppell Arts Center would give us who are in 2- and 3-dimensional art an opportunity to be viewed on an ongoing basis, not maybe twice a year outside, rain or snow, sleet or hail or whatever. My home is my gallery because there's no art galleries in Coppell. We're 45,000 people, give or take a bit. We should have a place for art and artists. The second question, which was the last question, and this is it. What role the Art Council or the Art Center will have overall on the community in the terms of educating, bringing people together, broadening the horizons for young people, etc. The Art Center becomes a destination to see and hear talents from people within Coppell and those outside of Coppell. The Art Center will bring other venues outside of Coppell to our community. And all of the above will generate new revenues for some of the businesses in Coppell. It also maybe cause other people to want to move to Coppell. The Art Center becomes a destination to help us provide discovery by the youth and adults that they've got a talent that they didn't even know about. These hidden talents can be then lasting for a lifetime. I'm 77 years old. I found the gift of art at a young age. I love baseball. I love football. I love tennis. I can't do those anymore. I gave up tennis at 65. I gave up softball at 55. I'm still loving with a passion for art, whether it's drawing, whether it's watercolor, pen and ink, pencil, oil, it doesn't matter to me. It's a mind exercise that brings me joy, brings me pleasure, and those who commission or buy my art enjoy it also. Even if you're not good at what you try to do, coming to the Art Center gives those people to learn what they can and cannot do, but it gives them also the vision of being able to see talents of others who can do it for a lifetime. The role of a community art center is unlimited. The imagination, the leadership, and the talents can make the area thrive in the area of arts as long as Coppell exists, if we do it and do it right. And if we engage the money to do it and do it right. We have places that you and I cannot even walk in, cannot go in the field right here in our own city and we pay for it through CISD taxes. This art center, as been stated, is already paid for with taxes that we pay through that 1/2 cent sales tax on gas, if I understand that correctly. But the new art center will be a foundation for a lifetime of the arts for all citizens of Coppell and our community around us. Thank you.
And thank you. Mike Kincaid.
I appreciate the board listening to us today. My name is Mike Kincaid. And I live at 428 Parkview Place. And I've been in the Coppell Community Chorale for 5 years now. And I speak on behalf of the chorale. Our old theater was built from an old firehouse. It has served Coppell well over the almost 20 years that we've had it, helping to create a local theater and music scene with the Coppell Community Chorale for its residents and workers to enjoy. And our community has recently spawned a community orchestra, as you've heard, and we've had a recent show at George of our visual art scene, which is maturing just as well, too. Collaboration between these groups can bring even better performances and shows. But our old theater is deteriorating, and I liked hearing my words earlier. We've had multiple leaks spilling torrents of water into our public and practice areas. There's rats, there's squirrels, and other vermin regularly inhabiting the structure. Mold and mildew has become an everyday smell in this veteran theater. And we probably wouldn't allow this in our schools, but we are allowing it in our public place. We need a new theater and a proper performance hall for enjoying live music. We've talked a lot about theater. This new performance hall has a black box theater and a performance hall for music. A theater in the round's great for plays and theater, but it's not for music performances. Music is best heard at one angle, directly in front of the musicians. The $16 million expenditure, I know it's big. And my UTMBA provided a lot of opportunities for analyzing cash flow. And I live by fiscal prudence. I wouldn't be retired now if I wasn't. That training recognized the difficulty in measuring an opportunity loss. This isn't just a financial measure. We wouldn't build this with private money if it was to make a profit. This isn't a for-profit theater. Those are for being built by other people. This is for the public. This is for local art. We need this theater to continue to form real attachment between our city and its citizens. Arts and parks, the aesthetics of a place, were identified in a recent survey of 43,000 people in 43 different cities as a greater driver of attachment to their community over education, safety, and even the local economy. It drives a community's sense of place. So let's make Coppell a better place to live with the arts as part of the 2030 plan, and not just a place to sleep after work. This project is legal and within the CRDC's charter and financing, and we encourage you all to vote yes. One more note. If you remember, Money Magazine in 2013 noted Coppell as one of the best cities in America. Noted in there was that we had a local choir. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Joan Ming, please.
And I live at 614 Cribs Drive. Madam Mayor, CRDC members, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this group. I am not challenging or questioning the value and the benefits of an art center because I think it's phenomenal. I'm New York raised and born and practically and grew up with Broadway in my backyard. So I have definitely, and the all the art museums and all the venues that are available in New York City. So I am greatly appreciative of the arts and the availability of the arts here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and specifically what could be available in Coppell. What I do have some questions about is the scope of things and a little bit about my background. I'm a project management professional, so I manage large-scale projects that include construction. And, I've dealt with projects, on the scale of 12 million up to 24, 26 million, my last projects. And so looking at, what we're proposing here, I have questions on the scale and scope of what is actually needed in a community theater, or we're not in a community theater mode. We're expanding to include the requirement of having outsiders come to Coppell in order to make this self-sustaining. Or do we intend for it to be a continual operational drain on the community? And that's what I'm looking at. From a project management standpoint, it's not enough to build, execute, and have this theater ready, but what are the downstream consequences of having such a phenomenal art center of that scale and magnitude? I recall not so long ago when I was part of RAND Corporation doing a study for the UCLA Medical Center, which opened up in 2016. And we were looking at the design, looking at all the issues that relate to having, a brand new medical center of 2020. And we did this planning back in 1998, okay? And it opened in 2016. And the same thought, occurred to me on, what we're doing here. And a more recent project, which involved, hospital expansion of cardiology department, when I looked at architectural drawings, we were talking about, an architect who clearly, had his own, shall we say, good old boy network of suppliers. And when I was questioning details of the scope and plan, I discovered that he had put in light soffits, that involved $600 light bulbs. It's like, do I want to maintain that kind of operational cost, for an area that wasn't really visible to the public? Now, in our instance, the majority of what's going to be available in our art center is for public viewing. But still, those are considerations for the long term. It's not immediate. We open, we have something built and constructed and ready to go. But what are the downstream implications of managing and sustaining such a theater? And having the requirement of needing all these outsiders come into our community where we've enjoyed being a bedroom community. Do we really want to compete with all the other theaters in this area? And we will be competing. And if it takes 5 years to become break even, that means that we're talking about at least 5 years before we have the reputation to bring those venues into our community. What are we doing during that 5-year period? And how much marketing, how much effort will we need to put forth in order to get to that break-even point? So those are considerations which I consider important, not only the initial construction, but how are we going to sustain and support this community theater? Thank you for your time.
Oops, and thank you for your comments. Rookie mistake. Next up, Joe Shirley, please.
Joe Shirley, 582 Villawood Lane. I've been about a 38-year resident of Coppell. First of all, I'm very much in favor of the arts. My grandmother was an amateur artist, did oil paintings, beautiful job. My mother was an amateur artist and did oil paintings and china painting. My nephew is a great artist, amateur artist, and he does all different kinds of artwork. I bought my first camera when I was 14 years old, and I've been doing photography ever since. So I'm very much in favor of the arts. I've been fortunate enough to visit wonderful art museums in the United States and around the world. So I'm very much in favor of art. However, I'm not in favor of wasting money on things that we don't really need. I have a friend, he and his wife have season tickets to the current art center. They said it's very nice, very cozy. They have a side room where they can have refreshments and sell things. And he said it's never full. The city manager made a presentation at the Old Town group last fall. I asked him what the current utilization was on our existing facility. He didn't know. So I think it's totally irresponsible to invest, $15, $16 million in a new facility when we don't even know how the existing one is used. Maybe you know that. I don't know. The paperwork from the architect goes into elaborate estimations on how much money is going to be received from the new art center. Has anybody ever looked at what the utilization is on the existing facility? The existing facility, I believe, is 100 plus, I don't know the exact number, but 100 plus seats, and the new one is proposed to be anywhere from 320 to 450. So how do we have any certainty that we're going to get any more patrons in the new one than we had in the old one? Things change over time, and we used to have very vibrant shopping malls. Now the shopping malls are dying. People are doing something different. Technology changes everything. How do we know that 5 years from now people are going to want to be going to live performances? How do we know that the people that are now singing and performing and so forth are going to want to continue to do that? One of the things that I'm really concerned about is the CRDC and the council have either spent or approved over $1 million in fees for architectural and engineering services without ever having any public hearing. This is the first, as far as I know, this is the first public hearing. Why weren't we having public hearings from the very beginning to get the public involved, to get public input and so forth before we spent millions, $1 million and so forth? I think that we need to look at how we can accomplish the goals we want to accomplish with the things that we have. They're anticipating a $200,000+ a year deficit on the new facility. What could we do with that $200,000 a year to improve the existing facility, to help arts in other ways? One of the people was talking about having a place to display art. Okay, you have lots and lots of public facilities. You got the city hall, you got the core, you got the library, you got the safety park, you've got the senior center, the diversity center. You've got a whole bunch of schools. So there's all types of places that we could display three-dimensional art, all kinds of art that are already paid for, and so forth. So I think that we need to see what we can do with what we have, try to accomplish the goals on making art great for the city without spending a whole lot of money on a new building that may not accomplish anything. One of the concerns I have a business in Old Town. There are very stringent regulations on what you can do in Old Town. So if I want to change my windows, I got to meet the city requirement for Old Town look, my door, this, that, and the other. The current design of the Art Center is going to be in Old Town, center of Old Town, and it looks like a modern art museum in New York City. It doesn't fit at all. And so I would really like to just put a halt on this till we can look at some other options and see what we can do to accomplish our goals as far as the arts without spending a lot of money that may be just wasted. Thank you.
And thank you for your comments. Before we call our next speaker, I'd just like to remind everybody that the protocol for these sessions is 5 minutes per speaker, and there is a timer, and we don't want to be heavy-handed and tell people to hurry up, so if you would just be sensitive when the timer comes up and wind down your comments, we'd appreciate it because we want to get everybody in. Our next speaker is Cynthia Rahman, I hope. Cynthia lives on Thompson.
She may be outside. She may be outside.
Oh, someone comes in with this. Okay, Next would be Connie Savard. Oh, okay. All right. Joanne Hill is next on the list.
Same thing. Mr. Wilson spoke on our behalf.
Okay. Tracy Fisher. Well, we're making up time now. Thomas Burrows. You're up, sir.
I'm Thomas Burrows. I live at 138 Windpage Drive. I have a computer science degree with a minor in geology and business with some additional emphasis in physics and mathematics. Somehow I managed to get a 400 level theater credits too. This is a rare combination. I have a minute and 17 seconds of network TV extra time. I'm talking the 4 major networks, not some obscure cable channel. So I've lived in Los Angeles. I know what they talk about the industry out there. My mother-in-law has a piece of art that she did, that's hanging in the office of the Speaker of the House of the United States of Representatives. Think of the people that come in and speak with Speaker Ryan in the meetings and stuff, and there is her painting there. We can't even get the lady to do paintings of our dogs. She's so expensive. On my honeymoon to Maui, we went to 4 different museums. Now, we were both over 40, so there was other things to do besides just the bedroom. So the point is that everywhere I go, my son thinks that we go to a museum. We went to a Canadian hockey tournament. Everybody else was sitting by the pool and drinking. We went to the museums. Found out that there's a different version of the War of Independence in the War of 1812 up there than we have down here. So, have we done everything we're supposed to do for Coppell before we go and buy the Mercedes-Benz? This was not part of my original speech. I found this on the way in coming to here. There is election stuff sitting out there. How many city employees walked by this since we had the election on Tuesday and didn't notice this or couldn't be bothered to pick it up? How many street lights do we have out? I could tell you. I report them. How many power poles do we have on Denton Tap that have no power lines connected to them and nobody notices? How many yards need to be mowed that code enforcement is not doing? Because as code enforcement told me, we would have to pay the money to mow the yard and we might not get it back. Oh, so that's going to mean we're going to leave the grass up to here while we're building an art center? If this is the best job that the city employees can do, folks, hey, we've got other requirements. Lights, roads, code enforcement, sidewalks. You know how many miles of power lines we can bury up and down Denton Tap and Beltline for what this thing is going to cost? I don't have rats at my house. Why is there rats in this place? Call an exterminator. Get rid of them. Fix the roof if that's what needs to be done. As I said, I've done theater. I've done network television. My wife's mother has, who here that's an artist has a piece of art hanging in Washington in a representative or senator's office? Nobody. We're just spending too much money on this. There's no parking. Go back and rethink this. But fix the current needs first. Why are there burned out lights on the street? Fix all the lights first, and I'll be all in favor for us doing something. But when I ask the city why we can't get this done, oh, you can turn it in. I spend 15% of my time doing code enforcement stuff. Why can't the police do the lights? But, oh, we need an art center, but we can't keep the lights on in the city. We can't keep the grass mowed. We have power poles that have no wires to them. We have ugly power lines that could be buried. You know, Toyota makes a darn good car. I don't want a Mercedes-Benz. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Davin Bernstein.
Good evening. My name is Davin Bernstein. I live at 228 Hollywood Drive, and I thank you for having this hearing tonight. I think we've certainly heard that there are a lot of different viewpoints, and as members of the CRDC, you'll have the opportunity to sort those out. But I do appreciate you making that time today. I have a couple of different things that I'll talk about, so I'll keep going until the buzzer goes off because I think there's a lot of different issues here. My first question is this, is I really don't understand why this body is taking public testimony about a project that it is not empowered to independently approve or disapprove. Citizens are told there's a public hearing by the CRDC, but this body is not able to approve the Arts Center. You are able to approve the funding after the City Council has approved the Arts Center. Okay? So this body taking testimony from these people is really kind of irrelevant because the changes to the bylaws of this corporation in October of 2014 removed the ability of this body to take action. This is in stark contrast to what was in the bylaws that had been approved a mere 6 months before this that required the body to develop a project development plan that would then be approved by the City Council. So there are 2 City Council members here sitting on this board, essentially voting twice on the same project, but through a nonprofit corporation that's controlled by the very body they are elected to oversee. I don't know if that's a conflict of interest, but it certainly raises questions in my mind. Is this an overbearing effort by the City Council to control only projects that they want and to control the levers that fund them? This happened after the 2013 vote by the citizens on the extension of the sales tax for the CRDC. I believe that this is a significant restriction on the duties of this corporation, specifically as it pertains to a public hearing about approval for spending. Since this board does not have control over the approval of the project, why is it collecting public testimony about the Arts Center? I think that the proper thing to do is for the original intent of this corporation to be restored, the City Council to assume its proper role to hear public testimony about the Arts Center before they act on that request. Second thing I'd like to discuss is that on May 8th, the City Council heard an expert in theater talk about the need to add 130 seats to the theater in order for it to be a viable art center that could book shows. This really raises some significant questions because we don't know what the cost is in order to do that, and yet we're collecting testimony and we have a plan that's ready for approval. So the real question here is, are we going to be a community theater with 330 seats, or are we going to be a regional theater that has a 450-seat theater? That's a pretty big question that has not been answered yet. City Council has not made any comments on it. They've just heard this expert testimony. This is not an appropriate time to be collecting public testimony until we have the answer to that question. Third thing I'd like to say is that the cost of this theater is on average over $1,000 per household in Coppell, $16 million divided by 14,577 households in the city. That is a lot of money. And during my recent mayoral run, I met a lot of people. I met one gentleman who literally does not have the money to put a fence over a creek because he's concerned about his kids falling into the creek, and yet he's going to be on the hook, whether through sales taxes or through increased property taxes because the sales taxes aren't being used for a similar type thing, right? He's going to be responsible for an art center, but he's not able to put in the fence that he needs for his house and to protect his children. I think that's an important consideration, that the size of this spending should be considered. A third thing that I'd like to discuss is the plan, right? So as somebody mentioned earlier, the plan, there has not been a model that's been posted. We have a Coppell Commons where there's no plan that's been posted. And we've certainly had lots of conversations on Facebook about this, certainly in the last day. But really, have we asked citizens to comment? Have we put things at the core and said, this is what's planned? Do we even know how many parking parking spaces that are going to be there because it's not on that website today? Have we put this information out there, even at City Hall, and asked people to put in a comment card? These are a lot of ways that we could collect input over a period of perhaps a month that would allow us to get a better understanding from citizens, the average citizens going through. Another thing, I'm very concerned about the long tail of support because we're using money to support not only the building of the facility but the maintenance of it, and that restricts our ability to build trails, which, by the way, citizens want 2-to-1 in a poll that had been posted online about 20 months ago. Finally, I object to the modern design of the facility. If you look at the Coppell Code 1228A, it says that all structures must be in conformance with Old Town Coppell, and this design does not meet that requirement. Thank you very much.
And thank you for your comments. Sherilyn Fox.
My name is Sherilyn Fox. I live at 266 Suzanne Way, and I've been a resident of Coppell for 21 years. I don't come to you as an artist. I come to you as a mother of an artist. My 9-year-old has been acting in venues across the Metroplex for 4 years. She's done approximately 20 shows. I've lost count. You can do the math on that and figure out that she is not a casual theater kid. She's an all-in theater kid, right? I've driven to Richardson, I've driven to North Dallas, I've driven to Highland Park. Most often, I drive to Louisville, to the MCL Grand. When I looked at your floor plans, what I saw was something that was similar to the MCL Grand, but yet contained for a smaller community, which is what we are, right? Louisville also has a much larger performance hall that they use for much bigger protections than what the MCL Grand can contain. I've also been to the Irving Center. She has not performed there, but I've been there. And the largest theater, what we would call the main stage theater in the Coppell plan, is similar to the smallest theater in the Irving Arts Center. So, and they don't have a black box theater there. So I've heard a lot on Facebook and in the community about how Coppell cannot support a grand theater just like these other, surrounding cities that have much bigger populations. And the fact is that Coppell is not trying to build a theater like these surrounding cities. It's not building the Irving Arts Center. It's not even really building the MCL Grand because they have a center courtyard that's several thousand square feet that they also use for performances of a different type. One of the things about the black box theater that a lot of folks don't understand is that a main stage is like the stage is in front of you, the audience sits in front. It's great for acoustics. It's also great for things like dance recitals. A black box theater is typically surrounded on 3 sides. It's literally a room that's painted black. It's great for smaller companies that don't have a lot of money, that want to do programs with minimal set design, and they also use a lot of variety in their staging. They're facing 3 sides. They can come and go from the front of the stage, the back of the stage, and also as a parent, you get to sit really close, and it's pretty great. So, and as an audience member, it's just great to be that close and intimate. The first time I ever went to the Black Box in Louisville was to see a national tour of a one-woman show, and she wanted that small, intimate feel. The groups that my daughter works with in Louisville are Flower Mound groups, and one of them actually moved their headquarters to Fort Worth, but they still go to Louisville for their show. And the reason they do that is because they are responsible for the after-school programs for drama in Coppell schools. Coppell children and Coppell schools who do an after-school drama program drive to Louisville to do their productions because we don't have a facility for them here in Coppell. They might do a school performance. It's been really difficult to book the schools, especially at the end of the second semester in May. I mean, if you're trying to book a stage at the end of May in Coppell schools, it's really hard because they're all booked up with fifth grade things and graduation things and talent shows and all that. As the mother of a child, I would like to just thank you for considering putting an art center in Coppell. I've driven many miles. I've spent thousands of dollars on my child's interest. I would posit that my house could use a new paint job, but I don't do it because the children in this community, many of them are passionate about the arts. And we've heard from a lot of adults that are passionate about the arts. There are hundreds of children in Coppell who are looking for a local place where they can do art, whether it's singing or dancing or acting or painting, something that's local that their parents, I'll drive to Richardson. A lot of parents won't. So thank you so much for considering this. Thank you so much for releasing the information that you have, the floor plans that you have. Personally, I think they're great. I can see where there is a concern about the money, and there is a concern about possibly having a loss. But I also know that production companies, they travel and they look around, and it might take a couple of years to kind of get the word out that there's this thing in Coppell. But especially the children's theater groups, they will come if you build it. Thank you.
And thank you for your comments. Sally McGrady?
That's me. I think I also made a mistake of signing up.
Problem. Gary Tennell.
Good evening. Gary Tennell, 316 Crooked Tree Court. I consider myself a fiscal conservative, but I'm also a supportive of this proposal. This is not a conflict in my mind, and I'll tell you why. I served on the CRDC board, as you are doing right now, for 3 years, when we built the Aquatic Center and the Recreation Center, the hike and bike trails, wagon wheels, and all of that, 2000 to 2003. We had a lot of discussions just like this, and people were showing up and saying, we don't want another Wet and Wild park in Coppell, and there's parking, and there's traffic, and this and that. When it all settled out, when we saw what the reality was, I think it was money very well spent on the CRDC for all of those things I just mentioned. I know what it's like to do what you're doing up here and the City Council and everybody sitting in here right now. We want to make the best community to raise a family. That's what we're doing. We don't live in Garland. We don't live in Dallas. We don't live in Louisville. We live here in Coppell. We have a certain quality of life that we all value. And where we all have a fixed income or a fixed amount of money to spend, and where are we going to spend that money? For me, it's on the quality of life. I also served on a lot of other things, but Kid Country community where we built the best playground around. Hundreds of wonderful Coppell residents volunteered to build that. That shows you the commitment to community that this town has and the residents thereof. I put one year of my time, 2 weeks worth of vacation into the construction of it, and it was very well worth it. Certainly, the Kid Country is not cash flowing positive. So it's not, okay? It's not a cash flow thing. It's a quality of life thing. We have lots of wonderful things here in Coppell with people like you and everybody here in the audience today. We have fantastic schools, stadium, arena, field house, band, great parks, bike trails, infrastructure, and a business-friendly environment that's contributing to the half-cent sales tax, by the way. All of those are tops. None of these are making money-making enterprises, okay? They all go to the quality of life. Quality of life. And it goes to property values, okay? My house is worth a lot more because of the money that we spent on the schools and the parks and all the other things. This is one of those one of those items. We have the best here in Coppell because we value the quality of life. Throughout history, what do we wish to learn from other cultures? We found out about their education, their recreation, their parks, and the arts. There has to be a balance. The balance is very important. Look at the money we spend on each one of those. What percentage of that are we spending on the arts? Think about that. Okay? I volunteer valuable time that I have, as everybody here does, in a lot of extra things like building sets for the Coppell Theater. I thank Pete Wilson for all that he has done for the Coppell schools and for the theater and for the arts and all the things. He's a selfless person, trust me on that. Why? Because we learn from doing. The great things about the arts is that every person of all ages, as one of the prior speakers says, I can't play football either, okay? But I can participate in building sets. I can't sing or dance, okay? It's all ages can practice and appreciate what we do. We haven't cut corners on all those other projects I mentioned earlier. Okay, we should ask ourselves the challenging questions, and please do that. But don't cut corners. Put it as a good use of the funds that you have. Okay, we want to make this the best community we can live in. Let's keep up the tradition and do it right. Thank you.
And thank you for your comments. Deborah Wood.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Wood. I live at 542 Lee Drive, and I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of Maggie Lucas, citizen of Coppell and member of the Economic Development Committee. She wrote this letter. I believe the Coppell Art Center should be approved for funding for the following reasons. It supports the Coppell vision of a family community for a lifetime by increasing access and public awareness of the arts. It supports the 2030 plan and would be an integral part of diversifying our community, which includes state-of-the-art parks and sports system, locally famous farmers market, and the popular destination of Old Town. It supports council goals of an excellent and well-maintained city infrastructure and facilities. It supports the economic development strategic plan to ensure the viability of Old Town Coppell as a destination for residents and visitors. Our community thrives because of its sense of community and the relationships we foster through gathering spaces, and the Coppell Art Center is a needed addition to what makes Coppell a great and fulfilling place to live. I'm in full support of the Art Center and would like to send my endorsement as a support as a priority for the CRDC. That's from Maggie Lucas. I personally have lived in Coppell for 25 years, so most of my life. I went to Coppell schools and was deeply ingrained in the arts at Coppell, and we, as a community, take the arts in the schools really seriously. And I think that the same should occur for, not just the schools, but for the community as a whole. And I think that the Art Center is long overdue. And I really appreciate the support for the Art Center. So thanks so much.
Thank you for your comments. Joel Busby.
Joel Busby, 754 Cameron Court, which is also in the Old Town area. So thank you all for your service. Oh, and here's my grandson, Clark, who is also a resident of Coppell. I asked if he wanted to come tonight to see government in action and public service in action, and he said, sure. About halfway through, I said, Clark, what's more exciting, WWE wrestling or this? Sorry, he picked wrestling. But that's okay. That's okay. This is the right way to do it. Comments are brief. First of all, I support the overall concept of doing an art center. I think it's great. I think it'll be a great addition to the community. I think all the reasons that you've heard tonight, I can't say it any more eloquently than it's already been said. I do agree with the comments. Make sure you get the scope, get the cost right. When I hear that you spend $1 million on architectural drawings and so forth, actually, I think that's a good thing. I come from a project development background, the oil and gas business, and when I see projects go really wrong, it's when you don't spend enough money up front to get the scope right and to really understand. So, again, as a taxpayer, I want to make sure the money's well spent, but don't be afraid of spending money up front to get it right. In terms of waiting until all the potholes are fixed, if we wait till the last pothole is fixed, we'll never build this. So don't let that be a reason not to go forth with this project. I think it's the right time to do it. The arguments about merchants being complaining about too much traffic in Old Town, I don't think that's going to be a problem. There's space over there for more restaurants. If you go to the farmers market, if you go to any of the concerts that are held in the park over there, there's lots of people there. I would say there's more people at the concerts than will be coming to the theater show. Parking hasn't been an issue as far as I've seen. Absolutely have a parking plan, understand where people are going to park, but I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. But last of all, the one nit I do have, and you've heard it before, is the architecture. When I saw the drawings for this, I thought, wow, that really doesn't fit the feel and the vibe of Old Town. Like, for instance, the Life Safety Park. I mean, part of that does look like Old Town, but part of it doesn't. The main building there, it's a more contemporary-looking building, but it's rather soft-looking, and it doesn't have that jarring steel and glass feel that at least that's the way it hit me when I saw the first renditions of the Art Center. So if there's a way to kind of soften that a little bit, I realize you're dealing with a different type of structure, and I don't want it to look like Opryland. That's not what I'm saying. But I think you can soften it a little bit because my neighbors and I will be the ones looking at it every day for the next 20 years. So thank you very much for your service. Best of luck in your decision.
And we thank you for your comments. Theodore Randall.
Good evening, Theodore Randall, 114 Tennyson Place, just down the street there. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak about this. I have been in Coppell for about 10 years now, with me and my wife and my 2 children. We go right to town center there. We come from the Midwest, a small little town, Chicago. It is, you laugh about it, but living in Chicago, one of the aspects that makes it feel like a small town is the arts and the emphasis that we put on the arts. Being able to go downtown and walk around and spend a little money down there on the arts and also around the surrounding areas. So it's a small town in that way. So having something like that here in Coppell, from my perspective, we're here. We're going to be here for a while. With 2 little ones, one's graduating from town center this year, we'll be around. We want to share that sense of community and that sense of art with them. And I think there's no better way to do that than with the arts, going to the theater, participating, or even going to any of the chorales programs, having them participate in, or even go to see an orchestra that's here. I think one of the first things that we took them to arts-wise was something in Louisville, because it was close and they had an orchestra, and after the orchestra they had a little impromptu where the kids could play with the little instruments and see what kind of things that they wanted. And I'm sitting there and just wondering, like, why isn't that here in Coppell? That's something that we could have right here. So that's another reason that I support this this initiative, and I hope you guys too. There's been a lot of discussion about the current facility. Why not just fix up the current facility? I've been in the current facility. I've attended a number of the performances there, awesome performances, but there are limitations, and I'm not going to bring up the vermin. I think that's been brought up enough. But the limitations are just the size. If we don't have a huge crowd out there, perhaps we should look at, it is an old firehouse, and I'm sure the fire department would agree with us that if we only have 150 capacity, we had better not put more than that there. So we have those limitations. So we have to look at that if we're taking a look at the facility itself and saying, okay, let's just fix it up. But if we fix it up, we're still limited as far as being able to expand beyond where we are. The other point I wanted to bring up is I haven't looked at the entire proposal that's there as far as the resources that would be required in order to staff the new facility. My short time here, one thing I have definitely seen is the spirit of volunteerism here in Coppell. Everyone who is doing the arts, they're volunteering. Those signs that you see sometimes being picked up, sometimes not, those are picked up by volunteers who go around on Saturdays and they'll pick up those signs. That's volunteerism as well. So my thinking as well is that if this facility gets the green light, that yes, we'll have a number of people flooding in to volunteer to help. And so from my perspective, that's not going to be an issue. The other aspect is just what I kind of spoke to before is just linking some of the aspects of this new facility with CISD in some capacity. There could definitely be some utilization there from CISD. Someone mentioned before about having some theater performances occurring there simply because we don't have a facility here. So that's something we could definitely get. And then also just inspiring the youth, like my little girl, my son, they were inspired by looking at the Louisville Orchestra and seeing what they were doing. Some people may look at that and say that those are soft things that we could you can probably go someplace else and get it. But if you stay right here in Coppell, you're actually building up the cachet in Coppell for people who actually want to stay here and spend money here. Even when they grow up, maybe they'll come back and want to stay here because they remember Coppell is that kind of place. The last point that I wanted to bring up is I'm a director for a pharmaceutical company, and we definitely look at the big picture, the long picture. We're looking at a compound potentially that may or may not work out, but we're flooding millions of dollars and in some cases billions of dollars. And we know we may not get an investment, a return of our investment for many, many years to come. 15, let's not do 20 years because that's when our patent is up. But my point is basically as stewards, we have to take the long picture of about how this is going to benefit our community, not just for us now, but definitely for those who are smaller than us now and who are looking to us to make sure that our community is this awesome community that it continues to be right now. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay. And thank you for your comments. Mr. Randall was our last speaker who had signed up. I will mention that the CRDC board had received a couple of emails from folks that wanted to express their opinions, but they couldn't be here tonight. Deborah Wood was kind enough to read the one from Maggie Lucas, and if they take the time to write it, I wanted to make sure we acknowledged it. Another one we received was from Angela Webster, who said, I am fully supportive of the proposed Arts Center. I believe the city is approaching the project with a good eye towards fiscal responsibility, but also community growth and sustainment. I believe it will be an asset to the groups currently using the existing building, but also groups who are now having to go outside of Coppell to perform. A facility that can be used for large meetings and events is lacking in the city. That is obvious from the many posts of people looking for an event space for a large dinner or birthday party. We would also appreciate having somewhere in town, to go to events with a nice area to stop for dinner and a drink nearby. Old Town is the perfect spot to develop for the component of our town. As I mentioned when I opened the meeting, we were not going to take any action tonight. We were here to listen. I know I heard a lot of interesting different viewpoints tonight. Some very passionate, insightful, and thoughtful comments. Filled up a couple of pages of notes, and looking to my colleagues on the left and the right, they also filled up multiple pages of notes. Before I adjourn the meeting, speaking of my colleagues, would anyone care to make a comment before we adjourn? If not, thank you all for taking the time. Oh, wait. Yes, ma'am. You know, you got the boss right here. I never refused help in my life. I would like to entertain a motion to close the meeting. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for your time, folks.
That's a lot of notes. You got that one right. You did a great job. You did a great job. You did a good job.
A rookie.
No, I like your. Hey, you can.